All right.
Hey,
MarTech
hey.
Live. Friday, August 8th, MarTech Live. Marc and I are old hat at this now. So Marc Sirkin, Mike Pastore from Third Door Media and MarTech. Special guest this week, Melissa Reeve, MarTech contributor, founder of Hyperadaptive Solutions, and Jaina Mistry, another MarTech contributor, email and content marketing leader. So today we're going to talk about a lot of AI, unsurprisingly, right? We're going to talk about the GPT-5 release. We're going to talk about some of the things Melissa has done around AI and her book. And then we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about B2B newsletters, Jaina's latest piece. And maybe in the AI segment, we'll ask, why hasn't Marc used AI to come up with a jingle for the start of MarTech Live?
Ooh, that next week
By the end of the show, Marc.
we'll be jingling. I'll be right back.
All
Hey,
right.
everybody.
What's hot?
A lot, right? A lot.
Well,
I want to like
GPT-5, man, it
GP.
came out yesterday, right?
What was it? Tuesday we got the open, or maybe it was Wednesday we got the open source models, which within 3 minutes I had downloaded and realized my computer can't run them. So that was like a big womp womp. And I tried 3 different computers and none of them ran it. But yes, we got GPT-5 yesterday. Who stayed up last night playing with it?
A little bit.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I like we can talk about GPT-5 all we want, but like I actually want to talk about a bigger topic that occurred to me. I've seen some people post about this. I'm feeling it myself. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but like, does it feel like the pace of change has like taken another notch? We were already running fast for the last 5 or 6 years, certainly, but like, has something changed in the last 3 to 6 months where we've got another gear going? Because it feels like that to me.
I think it's felt that way for like 2 years. And I think the problem a lot of people are running into is you get comfortable with stuff, you learn stuff, and you're like, oh, I'm starting to understand what this new model can do and how I can use it and how it's useful to me. And then there's something else you have to learn. And like you said, Marc, you were up late playing with it last night. There's only so many hours of the day to like learn how to use this stuff and do your job. In an ideal world, it helps you do your job faster, better, quicker, whatever. But we're in a constant like learn, execute loop, I feel like.
Yeah, I've been using this analogy of AI as sports. And so if you think about the word AI, like that's using the word sports. And underneath that umbrella, you think about how many sports there are. I mean, I haven't counted, I haven't Googled that number, but my guess is it's in the hundreds, if not thousands, of sports. And there's all kinds of sports. And I feel like with AI, we're trying to learn all the sports all at once. And so I think eventually everybody's going to kind of pick their lane or lanes. But I think that's part of the overwhelm, which is we don't quite know where to put our energy and it hasn't settled out yet. And so we're in this space of be like, oh, it'd be fun to learn pickleball and badminton and archery and like all the things. And I find for me, I've got to kind of filter out and be like, okay, I don't want to do this part, but this part's kind of intriguing to me. And it's so fun to dabble in all the sports.
Is that like you said, like predicting, Melissa? Like you don't know what's going to happen next, so you don't know how to prepare for it now, so you just kind of do all the things. And I think that's the same. That's the situation I feel like I'm in with it too, especially on like the content side of things. Like for years, you knew how content would show up in search engines, and now with all these new GPT models, it changes almost on like a 6 monthly basis, and you don't know what you need to do to predictably land where you need to land with these models. And so it feels like you're flying completely blind with it without really knowing, and kind of, I want to say headless chicken a little bit on that. Like you just try and do everything and it's exhausting.
Yeah. I find myself using the term cognitive load a lot lately. I don't know. I think somebody said it to me and it like resonated. So I'm like noticing my own cognitive load. Like, what can I absorb? How much energy do I have to apply to something? And I have a lot of energy, but not unlimited. Like at some point you run out. And I have been feeling that much more frequently lately. Like my brain is like working really hard to just keep pace, and yet more and more stuff for, more tools, more of this, more of that, more requirements, more everything. And I'm a huge fan of the book Essentialism, which is effectively let less, focus and do less, do the things that matter. But it feels like there's a real conflict there, and I think like collectively our cognitive load just has to be, as high as it's ever been in maybe mankind's history, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do about it.
Well, like you were talking about using ChatGPT-5 and figuring out what's new. And I've already kind of got a cognitive filter around like, well, Christopher Penn might put out a little blurb around that, or Paul Reitzer might cover it in his podcast. And so I'm going to wait for that little distilled version to come my way. And I find myself trying to find those little cheats, like who can I turn to for the TLDR on
Yeah.
this new thing, and maybe start handling some of those distilled versions rather than trying to keep up with everything,
Yeah.
everything everywhere all at once.
It's smart. It's smart. I'm curious. Does it do any? As I'm going to ask this question, but I'm thinking about it kind of the first time myself. With all of this AI that we now have, all the tooling we have, all the knowledge about how to use it, like, have we become more productive, or are we just now distracted?
I feel like initially you lose some productivity because you try things, they don't work quite right? Like I think we all probably went through that point where it took us 5 prompts to get something, and now we maybe get it in 1. But then when the models keep changing and new tools get introduced, you find yourself, that's why I said we're in like this like learning productivity loop, right? And sometimes it feels like once you got it figured out, it changes.
Yeah, it's definitely the J curve. You slow down to speed up. I mean, I've had many moments though where I absolutely 100% know I could not be doing the things that I'm doing, the number of things that I'm doing, without the help of AI. And somebody put a article in front of me the other day that was basically saying that developers were, I'm trying to find it now and I probably won't be able to, but it was something like developers are 49% slower or something with AI. And I just thought, yeah, okay, so you did the study. Where were they on that J curve?
Yeah, that's interesting. Jaina, what about you? Are you more productive or less productive with it?
It's somewhere in the middle. I fall under that human condition where I'll bang my head against the wall and just keep trying and trying and trying again with a prompt and another prompt. No, this isn't working, versus just taking a step back. And I think that's something, it's a habit I've learned to try and like identify and stop myself. But I have issue with the whole needing to be productive and using AI to 3x what you're doing or things like that. I think we're falling under this trap of like, oh, we have this great new tool, it's going to allow us to do more. But what if more is not the end result that we are after? We shouldn't be trying to do more or producing more or putting more out to our audiences and our customers. It's like we need to produce the right things for our customers and for our audience. It's not they're not craving more. They're not craving more blog posts. They're not craving more emails. They're not craving more ads. They want what's going to be most relevant to them. It's like I think there's like this thing about AI helping us be more productive and do more stuff, but like that's not where our audiences are after. So that's where I have like a little bit of an issue with like AI helps you be productive and do more. It's like that's not the answer we're looking for here.
Yeah, I think that's the heart of it, right? I think like, like the book Essentialism, like you want to do the right things first to get the most leverage on what you're trying to do. Just doing more stuff that doesn't matter isn't going to get us anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah.
Keep going.
I was gonna say, I think that's the heart. I think that's the heart of the question of like, okay, we have these super powerful tools. What are we doing with them? like these demos yesterday. It's like, do I need to build a crappy 3D scrolling video game that like just because I can? Or should I just go get an Xbox and play a good game that actual artists created? I don't know. I don't know. Like I legitimately don't know. Somebody said to me the other day, they were reading a story about a new service that will let you write a book a day. And he's like, I don't like if everybody's writing a book a day, who's actually reading any of this stuff? I don't know.
I still find it hard to keep up with the production of TV and movies as it is with streaming platforms. So I can't imagine what it would be like if, like you said, Mark, people start producing a book a day. Like, how many hours are there in the day for us to consume all of it? It's not feasible. It's not possible.
Here, I'll self shame myself. I have a Trello board where I put all the shows I want to watch. And then I go to IMDb and I get the rating so that I can sort it by rating so that I can, like, when I need a show, I just go like, okay, because they have to reduce the cognitive load. I'm like, so I have this Trello board of all the crap I want to watch. It's like 3 lifetimes of shows at this point. There's shows on there that I'm like, sure, it got a 9, whatever. I'm never going to watch this thing. Too much.
I mean, I think about it like outcomes versus output. And, for sure, AI could amplify your output. And I feel this internal tension a little bit too. We're in the tinkering phase, right? Like we've got to do a little bit of tinkering because the manuals haven't been written. People haven't, we haven't done the playbook. We haven't built the playbook. And so we'll eventually, my hope is, get to focus on the output because it'll be self-destructive. We'll put out so much content that it'll become meaningless. And then what do you do after that?
Right.
I think the biggest time saver that I have found is actually deep research, which is a good segue into Melissa's latest article on the MarTech website. I did an article spring, maybe early winter, late winter. Anyway, on tariffs and how tariffs impact like ad spending, and went to deep research to find some background on this. And I said to Marc afterwards, like, I would not have been able to write the story without deep research. It lived up to its name. It went and found data on obscure Federal Reserve web pages about ad spending during previous tariffs and trade wars, and just there's no way it happens. And it happened in almost the blink of an eye. Ask me a few clarifying questions because tariffs have a long, deep history. Like, okay, let's focus on the last 25 years. Let's focus on these instances. It's got the data on what happened. Were there a few things that we were a little bit off? Yes, it actually cited a MarTech article when talking about a trade war that was taking place long before the MarTech article was written. Easy for me to spot because I'm familiar with most of the MarTech content. But Melissa, why don't you talk a little bit about how you've used deep research?
Yeah, and I think it's important to start off and clarify for folks what deep research is and how it's different than just your regular query on a ChatGPT or even a Google. So if you put tell me about tariffs into Google, you'll get your list of resources. And to your point, Mike, the article that you truly wanted might have been on page 50, and you're never going to get to it. If you ask AI mode in Google, tell me about tariffs, you can see it. It'll through your 150 sites or whatever it is and give you a nice consolidated answer with a few reference links. And that's, again, super helpful. If you use a deep research tool, and I'm most familiar with Google's deep research, that what it is more akin to is having a team of researchers that can synthesize data and draw conclusions. And then if you do something like, say, show me all my citations in Chicago style, which is kind of my default, then you can go in and double check the references, double check the stats, because it's a hallucination engine. I think it's like between 60 and 80% of the information. It's not great. It really isn't great. And so you absolutely have to go in and double check that information. But super helpful when I think about marketers and when I think about all the shortcuts we take and we have to take because we're so squeezed for time. Market research, sentiment analysis, research and surfacing information for our articles and our blogs. All of a sudden, we essentially have this team of researchers that can not only dig out the information from page 50, but synthesize all the information from pages 50 to 100 and say, well, this one's a crappy blog and this one's a one-off, and here's the general sentiment analysis cutting through that. And wow, that's a whole new world.
And that was sort of the selling point of the HubSpot ChatGPT deep research connector that was announced a few weeks back, where take your data in your CRM and, like you said, have a team of researchers go through it and analyze it, which for like 15, 30 minutes, people were like, wow, this is amazing. And then people were like, wait, you want me to let ChatGPT run through my customer data? It was such a whiplash on LinkedIn about that. But privacy issues aside, data security issues aside, like the concept is pretty cool.
The concept is cool, but like the next part of after the privacy thing with the HubSpot, I don't remember seeing anybody, because maybe everybody got freaked out and ran away from it. I don't know exactly what happened, but the next thing that would happen is that it would hallucinate, right? Like, because it's not, again, like that's not a total knock. I'm not saying that as a total negative, but it does hallucinate. And so I was talking to somebody the other day about this vision of like the true expression of one-to-one marketing with, AI powered one-to-one marketing. Well, it's still probabilistic. So it's going to get stuff wrong. I don't know how much or how often, but the next part of that is great. My team of researchers went and looked at all this data in my HubSpot account or my database, my CRM, and it came back with these amazing insights. Turned out 60% of them were wrong. It's just not, it's not a panacea. And I think we're all striving for this magic bullet that, hard work, it's just not going to, I don't know. I feel very, very old saying this, but like, the tools are very powerful, and I'm the first one to raise my hand and go, yes, we should use these tools. But there is something interesting about like it isn't a magic bullet. You still have to do the hard work. It doesn't remove the hard work.
And is there a point where the double checking of what it gives you takes more time than maybe how you were doing it the old way?
Possibly.
If you had a team of research that could cross-check everybody's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that was the most time-consuming part of writing the book. So I've just finished writing this book, Hyperadaptive, and I use deep research. So I've been in it for 6-8 months. And the most time-consuming part, Mike, was the double checking. And I had to do it as I was going along because I didn't want a ton of tech debt. Like I get to the end of the book and now I got to go back and check every single link. And I've got, 300-400 citations in there. And so, yes. And the result was so much better. It probably would have taken me 3 years to do this research had I not had deep research.
Melissa, did it occur to you or not occur to you or just like not worth it, or did you try it, it didn't work, or did work to use a secondary or a tertiary LLM as the checker? Like you've got a citation. Like I guess I could click it myself, but like, as I've read a little bit about evaluations and that kind of process. And I'm curious if you did any of that.
I thought about it, and at the end of the day, my name's going on the cover, and I wanted to feel like I have personally done the work. Yeah.
I know a lot of people like to sort of daisy chain together their LLMs, right? And these big prompts, they go to certain LLMs. But if you're trying to fact check and let's say there's a 50, 60, 70% chance of hallucinations, I feel like you're really opening up Pandora's box if you have a 60% accurate deep research checked by another LLM that has a 70% accurate research. You're potentially digging yourself a hole that at the end you're going to need a human to get out of, right?
Yeah, I think when you have the answers somewhere, right? If you've got like an FAQ or something, like I think that it makes a lot of sense because you can run an evaluation before you give an answer back to the user and you say, okay, they ask this question: what are your operating hours? You've you got the answer. You quickly check the answer against the right answer. So now you know you're at 100%. You can return that answer or say, hey, I don't know the answer. It's interesting because, how often do LLMs say, I don't know the answer to that? Like zero.
Never.
Never. So like it would be helpful if it just said like, I'm not certain. And I've played around with prompts that will get you to that point where, you can sort of remember yourself to be like, hey, is this really right? And then of course it's like, actually, no. Like, well, wait a minute.
The other thing I found with deep research, I've been doing a lot of my last couple deep research projects have been about buying behavior and who makes buying decisions and things like that. And I suppose in my prompt, I could try and control this, but there are often citations from vendors who have a slanted view, right?
Mhm.
For instance, there was a citation about the average enterprise buying committee being something like 35 people. I said to Marc, like, you ever try and get 3 people to agree on where to go to lunch? Can you imagine 35 people trying to figure out which software they're going to buy? So the sources, and I can try and screw around with prompts asking for what it thinks are objective sources or giving it certain sources. But left to its own devices, it doesn't seem to have an understanding of the motivation behind what people publish.
I think you're onto something there, and this is a little tip for anybody listening to this, which is, if you haven't already or you're not already doing this, using the LLM to create your prompt, and especially for deep research, because when I create a deep research prompt, I might say something, give me information for the last 3 years. I want to focus on academic sources and analyst reports. But then when I give it those, 5 or 6 sentences, what it comes back and say, turn this into a prompt for deep research. The prompt that it generates is much more complete. And I did find myself getting much, much better results with a deep research prompt generated by an LLM that I could then take and drop into Google. I generally wouldn't have Google generate its own prompt because then it wanted to automatically flip itself into deep research. But then that became a very powerful tool.
Good tip.
Yeah. Melissa, I built a prompt architect GPT, and I basically scoured everything I could scour to get all the guides, all of the specific model guides, and put them all into a big zip file, put the whole thing in. This thing is amazing. It's a game changer. Like, stop writing basic, it'll, whether it's Veo 3 or ChatGPT 5 now, get the guides. The easiest way to study them is to put them into a custom GPT and then just let it do it for you. The level of thinking, I read some of these, even basic ones, and I'm like, I would have never thought of those things. Like, God. So you're right. And you're right. Use the gem, use a Google gem to generate something for ChatGPT, because it seems like it's more objective. It probably isn't, but yeah, it's a good tip. Real good tip.
All right.
What's next, Mike?
What's next? Melissa, you talked about some of the how you're writing the book using research. What about the book? You want to talk a little bit about what the book is about itself? We wouldn't be good talk show hosts if we didn't let the author talk.
You're so kind. I really appreciate it. So the book is called Hyperadaptive: Rewiring the Enterprise to Become AI Native. And I like to say that AI change is really human change. We focus so much on the technology, but the reality is the way we work is changing. And when you think about an organization, they are in what I call a linear space. It's you have strategy to execution, you have concept to delivery, and when you think about how work gets done, it's handoff and delays through the hierarchy. It's handoff and delays as you're going from concept to execution. AI is going to smush that hierarchy. It's going to smush our execution cycles. And that means jobs are going to change. We all know it. I don't love it when people say jobs are going away. I think they will shift. And so what the hyper-adaptive model does is it says through 5 key stages, this is how you move yourself from that linear organization into what I call an AI native or hyper-adaptive organization, where you can sense and respond and deliver at the speed of AI.
And how big of a learning curve do a lot of organizations have to get to that point?
It's a journey. Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a multi-year journey, and I break it down into, first you've got to inject AI into some tasks. That means you've got to dissect your process workflows. Then you might start building out your automations. And when you think about automations, that's when the jobs really start to change. And I like to say people will shift from doing a lot of the work to managing AI doing the work, building, maintaining, monitoring, a whole new level of telemetry around these automations. And then I think what's going to happen is the hierarchy will shift from functional specializations, right, which is a product of World War II and the growth of the enterprises, into more of what's called a value stream orientation. Who are all the people and functions and AI automations that you will need in an execution pipeline from concept to cash? And that dramatically rewires the hierarchy. Now we're thinking like this is a totally different future, right? There's a lot involved in that. And then in the final stage is more of an orchestration of all those value streams.
I like how you say it's. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, there's a Conversations with MarTech episode coming up with another author, Kathleen Schaub, publishing in the next couple of weeks. And in our conversation, we talked about, you were talking about kind of, we've been organizing ourselves the same way since World War II. And maybe it's time to change that. And some of the things Kathleen and I were talking about in regards to her book, I said, have we just outgrown the way we organize our businesses today? And we were talking, kind of about the revenue team and marketing and customer success and sales and, a lot of these silos and the lack of alignment and all that stuff. We've heard about it for years, and it's like maybe the whole thing is just broken.
Mm-hmm. It is. And so how do you get from where we are today to the future? And it's either you've got to rewire yourself, or there'll be a whole new batch of AI native companies that just come and eat the old way. Or, an old company will say, well, we're going to keep operating that way and we'll spin off a new thing to work the new way. I mean, there's a lot of ways to deal with it. And we know that some giants are going to fall, right? Just like Nokia did and Blockbuster did.
And I think a lot of the young companies that were young and were agile, the move quickly and break things stuff, they set out to organize themselves differently. And then as they grow and as they think about being public or they take VC money, it's kind of like, okay, now you got to do it this way because this is the way you've always done it, right? And the next thing you know, they're suffering from a lot of the same problems that everybody else has been suffering from when they get to that point.
It just strikes me, Melissa, as a human. It is a human problem, and it will always be a human problem until machines just take over and there are no more humans. Which, like, that's science fiction, not real. So, the crisis that's faced from an organizational standpoint and the hyper pace of change and your book, it, like, from a timing standpoint, if we were to say this is a baseball game and there's 9 innings, like, what inning are we in that change? Are we deep in the game, or is this just the beginning?
Oh my gosh, I don't think we're even on the field yet. We're in practice.
Yeah. Which is crazy, right? Because like we say things like silo and revenue and marketing and sales, like these are the CIO and the CMO, like these are issues that are 25, 30, I mean, since technology existed, these issues have been happening. And so now we're building and accelerating the pace of change. Humans have been widely unable to solve those problems, right? This is why we keep talking about them. They feel cliche, but like they're problems in most organizations. Mm-hmm. And now you're adding in super intelligence at a level that like also makes mistakes. It's another factor in the room. And so it's interesting you say that we're not even on the field yet, because I didn't think that was gonna be your answer, but I think it's a good answer.
Yeah. And, I want to make the another point came to mind as you were talking, which is culture follows the money. And the thing that we actually need to change in this whole scenario is the incentive system.
Yeah.
Because the way companies are incentivized right now is you have a group of leaders typically who are incentivized on a quarterly basis for their silo and maybe a tie up to the corporate. But if we keep incentivizing that way, then the structures will remain. It's power, it's prestige, it's survival, it's all of those things. And that won't change until the money changes.
And that's it's interesting because you get into disruption and
Mhm.
whether you want to talk about Nokia or Blockbuster or whoever, there's a million of them, Wang, DEC, all of them, right? All of the giants that have fallen at some
Mhm.
level, they failed to understand what you just said. One of the reasons they failed, not the reason, but one of the reasons
Mhm.
is they're incented improperly. At some point you go, well, this can work as long as it can work, and then it doesn't work. Meanwhile, there's other companies building new solutions in your space that you dismiss, right? That's the classic Christensen thing. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, the sound quality of MP3s is not as good as CDs, but we all carry around a million songs in our pocket now. Like, that happened. It will continue to happen. I think that's it's interesting because, again, it's a human problem, right? If leadership doesn't understand the pace of change, they could miss the point where it flips and then it
Mhm.
spins out of control, and then you find yourself like Blockbuster, to
Mhm.
oversimplify it. So I like, again, I keep coming back to, like, it's not about technology. This is people and leadership, and there's powerful forces that keep people in power.
Yeah.
And so, like, like, if those people aren't willing to say, okay, something radical is happening and we're going to change the incentive structure for myself first and the rest of the leadership team, and then writ large the whole company, that's a like, how many Andy Groves are out there, right? Like, how many
Yeah.
leaders can do that or are
Yeah.
willing to do that? And then just one other thing, like, as you get up to a certain age, it's like, well, I'll be done in 3 years, and, like, I'll let the next people deal with this. So I think we're really headed for a really interesting, just a really interesting time.
Yeah. I mean, you have to disrupt yourself, and that's really hard. And that's why I do think some of the companies that succeed will create a new will create a spin-off where they can demonstrate the value. They can demonstrate, oh, people are happier, they're less burned out, they're using these technologies wisely. One of the examples I share in the book is that of Toyota. And they have a whole separate city of the future and subsidiaries where they are working to disrupt themselves. And Toyota Connected Systems, and they're working with NTT, one of the big telephone communications, in order to connect cars and communication so that you're doing, I'll just give you a small example, real-time rerouting of the cars based on traffic patterns. And now we're not just following the line on our map, but the car is actually driving itself to the best route.
Incredible. And, like, the tech is incredible, but it's the vision of the leaders and the leadership and the change of the incentive structure that enable you to even think about that.
That's
Like,
right.
just boil this down to a simple thing, right? You have a process that is built by humans and is designed by people who aren't thinking about efficiency. They're just designed to, like, get the invoice, check it off, pay the whatever the thing is, whether it's procurement or marketing. And you go, well, now we have Zapier and AI and we can automate this. And they're like, well, that's what I do. So I'm not incented to change what I do because I can't see the vision. Meanwhile, leadership is like, automate it, simplify it, legitimately or not, or earnestly or not, saying, we'll take that human resource and do something else with it. But
Mm-hmm.
you've got this real clash. Look, I think, and this isn't new. This has been at every technology
Yeah.
breakpoint. This has
Mm-hmm.
happened. We're just at another one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could talk about this all day, but the missing layer in so many of these companies is the communication layer. And they're unable to communicate because they haven't figured out their AI North Star. What is our philosophical stance around AI? And if they had done that, so I'll give you the example of Unilever, who has thought this through, and they understand that they have good people and those roles will change. So they've developed a program called Future Fit that says, we're going to help you. As your role changes, we're going to help you because you're a good person move into that new role. And suddenly, when you're talking about that invoice situation, and you're like, well, sure, I'll automate it because the company's behind me,
Right.
and they understand that represents a change, and they'll support me.
Yeah. That is unfortunately not necessarily the message employees are getting from
That's
some, I wouldn't say, but there was a story this morning. I'm blanking, but some CEO said sort of aggressively, we're in a phase now where it might have been AT&T. We're in a phase now where, competitive pressure is basically more important than essentially employees are secondary to the competitive pressure. I mean, it is, the meta has changed on this. During COVID, it was sort of employee empowered. So we've shifted back, and now we're faced with this AI technology. So it's a really, like I said, it's interesting times for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll keep the baseball analogy going because Jaina is warm and ready to enter the game.
Let's go.
And Jaina, your latest piece for MarTech talked about the most underrated B2B channel, that being the newsletter, the email newsletter, which is a channel almost every B2B has.
Yes.
Walk us through the thinking there.
So every B2B company out there is sending a newsletter of sorts. It could be an editorial style of newsletter where it's like from someone at the company and they're writing on, or someone's ghostwritten for them on behalf, or it's like a collection of links and they're all going out to the company's own blog or their own content. My thinking is when someone subscribes to a newsletter, they're like already actively raising their hand. They're like saying, hey, I've got an interest in you. They could be a customer, they could be a prospect, they could be just someone who's even just mildly interested in knowing more about the brand. But you've got hand raisers right there. Whereas I'm kind of comparing a newsletter to the traditional marketing lead nurture, where someone signs up for a webinar, they download a white paper, and suddenly they're receiving tens of emails every single day that's telling them about the company and how they should sign up for a free trial or they should need to get in touch with the sales team for a demo. Like just because you download a white paper, maybe you downloaded 10 white papers and ebooks, does not necessarily mean you have raised your hand and you're like, I want to hear about more about this company. Whereas with a newsletter, you've already got people there who already kind of signaled, and I use that term very prescriptively, they've signaled an interest in the brand, in the product, or something about it. So that's where my brain is with when it comes to the newsletter. It's a positive signal you got with that one subscription, but it's a long game. I think with B2B news, especially in B2B, it was any newsletter really. I think I want to throw the B2B, B2C thing out of the window. It's if any newsletter is a long game when it comes to kind of nurturing that audience, building up a relationship, but also being comfortable with the fact that you may have people subscribe to a newsletter who may not buy in the next 3, 6, 12 months. They may not even be interested in buying, but they just want to hear from you. And I think that's a value that a lot of companies out there disregard because they simply want their channels to convert. But I don't see a newsletter as a conversion centric channel. It is a relationship building channel. It is one that keeps you consistently known to your audiences so that when they figure out, maybe it's like 3 or 4 years down the line, we're like, oh, I did really need something like that. But they've been receiving your newsletters along. Like the same thing happened to me. I use this example a lot, but I work from home. I have been working from home for over a decade. My wardrobe is mostly sweatpants and t-shirts. Like underneath this, sweatpants. It's all comfy stuff. And then like post COVID, going on like my first big holiday for a long time, I have zero clothes to wear on this vacation. But I've been receiving emails consistently from a couple of brands. I think one of them was Everlane, and their emails are good, and I like what they have, but I never bought from because I never needed it. 3, 4 years down the line, like, oh, I remember that brand, and I spent like a few $100s with them because they consistently showed up. It wasn't a newsletter, but they were consistently showing up in my inbox. Like that's where I think B2B companies forget that they can't force their way into being known, but they need to organically show up. And I think a newsletter is one of the best ways that they can do that.
There's a couple of things there. So newsletters, compared to a lot of the stuff that people are doing now in B2B, kind of old school, right?
Yeah.
We were doing newsletters 25 years ago.
Super old school.
Super old school. And has that worked against them? Have they been sort of forgotten about because there's shiny things and there's data providers and there's all this other stuff and intent signals, and you forget about email, which everybody's been trying to kill email for 30 years. No, it's done.
That's because no one will ever get rid of their email address. I think newsletters are coming, they're having a little bit of a renaissance right now because probably because of the creator economy. Creators are bringing the newsletter back through platforms like Substack, and Ghost and Beehive. There are so many different that are just for people who want to create a newsletter and get their name out there. And the B2B world is like, hey, they've got like millions of subscribers and followers just because they're writing and talking about things. Like, we need to do that too. So yes, the newsletter is sort of like an old school thing, but I think where it's changed in a where the people who are doing well with it are the ones who have adapted their newsletter to provide something of value to their audience. So I think I got one from Help Scout the other day, and it's a really nicely written email or newsletter from the founder of Help Scout. And it's talking about things that are super relevant to the audience, perhaps a little bit controversial for their own brand, but it's truthful, it's honest, it's something that I think newsletters perhaps 20 years ago they weren't doing, especially from companies out there who want to send emails and want to get conversions right away. So I think there's like an element that's changed to it because of this massive creator economy that's like started up in the last like what 10, 15 years.
Yeah. There's you kind of just alluded to this. There's different formats of newsletters, right? There's the email that goes out with links to different things. Maybe it's blog posts you published, it's the occasional product page, it's maybe a video of the CEO talking. And then there is this, each issue is like an original content newsletter, right? A thought leadership piece. Is one better than the other? Does it depend on your brand? Does it depend on your audience or what you're selling? How does the way you organize your newsletter impact what you're doing?
So I think they both can have a place in your strategy. Like, you can send a newsletter out that is a collection of links, it's a curated collection of links. But where I think that needs to be elevated is that you still need to instill your brand's opinion, unique opinion and perspective into what you produce, what you're sending there. You can't just say, hey, look, this is all of our product news, this is everything about us, this is, and it's so focused on the company. Like, I received one from an ESP today, and it was a newsletter, it was a product newsletter. I barely used the platform. And they're sending me all like, hey, this is new, we've got this new API, and go click on this link. And they're trying to sell me so much in this curated product newsletter. It's actually cut off in my Gmail that they're trying to sell so much. So it's like, you don't need to stuff that much stuff in it. So I think it has a place, but it's got to still have a your unique brand, tone of voice, and perspective attached to it if you're going to use that creative link. Like, tell me why you're sharing this one specific video link. Why should I care about this video from the CEO? Don't just send it to me in a newsletter. I'm very much warming up to the idea of these like more editorial style newsletter where they are just zero-click content in a newsletter. You consume it in the inbox, you read it, you can reference it later, you can come back to it, you can save it, it lives in your inbox. Those ones have a bigger opportunity for, I believe, that like relationship building aspect, because like we talked about, like, humans are so they're critical for any business, and you need to speak to the humans who you want to eventually maybe sell to, but you want to build a relationship with them. And that like editorial letter style newsletter does that a lot better. You can still include links to whatever you want to, like, send them to, blog posts, videos, whatever you do. But if it comes across as a more natural thing, like an email that you would get from someone in an inbox, and that's what email is after all, I think those are the ones that can have a stronger connection. And then you can also use so many different platforms. You're not beholden to using an ESP for that. You can use, I think, like LinkedIn newsletter, Substack, so Beehive. There are so many different ways. And then your newsletter is also a bit more of a pull channel. Like, it's not just going out to those subscribers. It is also living somewhere else that is very, very easy to reference to. But yeah, the curated link style is a great tactic if your newsletter is really, you just want people to get to your website. But I don't think that that's what people necessarily want today.
All right. So we want to provide value at every touch point, right? So whatever it is we're sending, we want somebody who's, especially in B2B, not in the buying mood, haven't gotten all their ducks in a row, all their 35 committee members on board with what they're trying to do. And that's a big difference between like the B2C example that you gave before about buying clothes going away. Like when you open that email, you want to see the clothes, right?
Yeah.
That's a more transactional thing. Like I open this email because I want to see what clothes you got for me. You don't need a
Yeah.
story.
I don't think it's necessarily it's mutually exclusive. I mean, I don't know what the Everlane email is, but my assumption is that there's some level of, perspective and voice in it, right? They're selling a certain type of clothes to a certain type of buyer. You're that buyer, you're on their list. I mean, there are some explicit and implicit ways that they can personalize that. And, this is the color of the season. And these are the new thing. Like they are selling, but they're still trying to make a connection. And I it strikes me that, you're right. The signal of asking to be on someone's newsletter is probably underestimated compared to like, a webinar or like special offer or whatever it might be. The inbox delivery piece, we had Ryan Phelan on last week, and he made the point that has stuck with me, which is like, make the unsubscribe button nice and big and like encourage people to get off the list. If you don't want to be on the list, don't be on the list. This is what we're doing here. This is who we are. This is our brand. It's okay. If you don't want to be part of the team, that's fine. I thought that was interesting. And, it's very counterintuitive to an old time email marketer who's like lived through the like build the big list and like, it's a direct mail mindset, right? I mean, I had a mentor who was a direct mail person and I was a digital person. And they were like, look, here's like 20 years worth of direct mail campaigns that all perform at like, 0.25%. And we're a big business because it was 0.25%. That mindset, still persists in spammers and cold email and email outreach. And I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but it does feel hyper inefficient to be happy that you get a 0.5% CTR is not great.
No. And even like, and with a newsletter, if you're sending an editorial newsletter, you may get 0 clicks. Like clicks is not even the goal there. It's about the consumption of it. It's about hitting the inbox. And sometimes it might not even be about the open. Like we can't even track opens reliably anyway these days. But just seeing the brand's name in the inbox is enough of a signal. And because say you're sending a monthly newsletter every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, you've got that consistency behind you. So people expect your newsletter, but even if people haven't necessarily seen it, it's going to be in their inbox. It's going to, as they're scrolling through, whether it's their primary tab or their promotions tab or updates, wherever it exists, it's going to be there. So I think there's like the newsletter that exists that doesn't necessarily have a click-through rate is just as valuable for B2B brands. But it's hard for B2B brands to find that as a value point because for so long it's all about attribution and which account is this attributing to and how many clicks has this account had on the newsletters. And I think marketers have to, especially B2B marketers, have to start getting comfortable with not being able to attribute every action to something that is going to get them to an MQL and SQL, whatever you want to call it. Like that's dying. And it's browsers, email clients, they're all making it harder for that to happen as well.
And that's what I was going to say. That attitude of I'm going to send out an editorial newsletter doesn't even have a lot of links, a lot of ability to click through, runs headlong into the measure everything, right? And that the measure everything is kind of how we got to your earlier example. You sign up for a webinar and you start getting bombarded with emails. The idea that like somebody signs up for an webinar and like you said they're ready to buy, but not only are they ready to buy, are they ready for the phone to ring? An hour later. So in some cases, probably not.
Well, Mike, I mean, the evidence I've seen is that for that small segment of people who are ready to buy, it works great. In other words, if you fill out a form on a B2B site and your phone rings and you pick it up, you actually are ready to buy, probably, right? For 99
I think it depends on the form, though. Is it the
Of course.
contact me form because
Yeah.
I'm ready to buy, or is it the form for the webinar because I
Right.
want to learn what you guys do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Except, and the only thing I'll push back on is like, but if you play the direct mail mindset game, which is you just call everybody, I got 1,000 people, I call everybody, and all I need is one to hit. That's what businesses are going to do, because you have to build a model, right? There's a spreadsheet somewhere that's like, we get this many forms and we get this many calls and we get this much business, and that's how the model works. And when it stops working, someone goes, we'll figure out a better way to do it. So there's a real, like, I feel the tension, Jaina, in what you're saying, because we experience it every day with our customers and our own efforts. It's really tricky because you're always balancing this.
Marc, I want to piggyback on your comment about the word is escaping me now, but it's basically efficiency. And it's such an inefficient system on both sides, right?
Yeah.
It's inefficient for a company to say, I'm going to call 1,000 people to get one. And it's inefficient for the consumer to say, I'm going to stay on an email list and get a weekly newsletter for
never read.
the one time
Yeah.
in 3 years that I might actually need this. And so I guess my challenge to all of us and potentially the listeners here is, how do we create a more efficient system? And of course, because my head is in AI, I'm like, where's my AI that can track all of these companies that I'm potentially interested in? And then when I put my problem into the AI, say, oh, well, you know, there is this company that you signed up for their newsletter, or you were interested in at one point. Seems like it might be a great time for you to start looking into it deeper.
Yeah.
I think there's just huge inefficiencies in this. And it's very, very painful for me every day when I open my inbox and I have to sort through everything that's being thrown at me.
I like the word, and I'll just counter with what I've seen in my conversations and my journeys, which is marketers, marketing teams, B2B management teams, marketing teams are looking at AI as a way not to solve the inefficiency, but to remove the human part so that they can just do more direct mail, is effectively, right? So it's like, hey, let's deploy an AI that's like a voice AI that can actually call everybody all at once. Here's 1,000 forms. Like, we just turn on the AI, it'll just call everybody at once. It's just more of the same. The conversion rate's not going to move. It's just that we don't need a human to make those phone calls anymore. It's a little insane, I think, but it also fits the mental model and the marketing model that we live in today, which is, we're all saying is probably going to change, but let's not give up so quick, because, things like that die hard, and they take a long time to sort of get out of our system.
When we started talking about generative AI for content creation, there was some voices, voices of reason, I would say, would say, if you're creating bad content, all you're doing is amplifying bad content when you're having your LLM churn out more. And if you've got a sales motion of, we're just going to call people out of nowhere and annoy a bunch, but maybe get one that wins, you're amplifying that if you're going to use AI to power that. So it's like strategy is still incredibly important before you go and amplify it, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's emails or content creation or phone calls.
Yeah. Mike, I sent you
the previous conversation you were talking about, like, it's the people, it's the leadership. Like, the change has to come from the top. Like, unless they're changing their mindset on how to approach things and how to use the new tools that we have and how to change our strategies to be more effective versus just doing the same thing over and over again, like, that change has to come from the people in control, unfortunately.
Jaina, what I would say is I'd refer back to Melissa's comment about incentives, because the management wants quality leads, MQLs, SQLs, revenue, pipeline. They don't necessarily care how you get it, within some framework. And so that's where there's real, because now the people doing the work have to demonstrate this works better than the direct mail mindset. And like you said, it could take 3 years.
Yeah, and then like, you can never. You send an email out, you send a newsletter out. I would never expect a newsletter to generate any amount of MQLs, like any sort of newsletter, whether it's a curated content, whether it's an editorial style letter, like the point of that is never to do, but then trying to sell that to leadership, especially if you're just an email marketing manager, if you're someone who like has a passion for this and knows and understands that there is a true value in this, exactly that. Like if leadership has an MQL goal and a lead number goal and revenue goal attached to it, a newsletter is not gonna, you're not gonna be able to assign a revenue number to that in like immediate. It may be something like 6 to 12 months. And that's, I still have not figured out how to really sell B2B newsletters to people who are so beholden to those goals and incentives.
Yeah, it's a real problem. I mean, I think just broadly speaking, what we're going through in SEO right now with the shift to kind of, the AI version of that, whatever we want to call that, AIO, GEO, whatever the heck you want to call it. But I think what it's pushing on is what you're getting at in a different context, in a different channel, which is brand, right? Like you have to build brand. And unfortunately for all of us, brand takes time. It takes authenticity. It takes credibility. It takes forever to build long lasting brands, and you can destroy them overnight if you're not careful. So it's a precarious situation. The moment you stop thinking about, and I'm speaking badly about direct mail, but I mean, direct mail has a place in the universe. Like there is a reason to send a lot of offers out when you have something you want to tell people about. That's what advertising is, direct mail. What you're talking about really is how do you use a newsletter as an underrated channel to build brand, and measuring brand is hard.
Yeah, measuring brand is not easy. You could, in theory, say that if you're consistently sending a newsletter over the course of 12 months, you should see a lift in branded keywords, for example. Like
Right.
if you're consistently showing up in inboxes, you're growing that list, and that list has grown a certain amount over a certain amount of time. You should, in theory, see those branded keywords show up a little bit more. But yeah, it's I love a good B2B newsletter. I think there are so many out there that I truly do enjoy. Maybe I'll write a new article for MarTech once I figured out how to sell it to
There you
leadership.
go. We'll be ready for it.
All right. We're running low on time. Who wants to play What's on My Feed?
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right. Who wants to go first? I can pop.
I'm hitting refresh.
Oh, okay. What's first on mine is us.
Hey.
Nice.
45 seconds ago, perhaps. So there you go. By the way, Eliza's got a question here, Marc, that I feel like you have maybe already figured this out. Like using AI to summarize insights from newsletter. Don't you have something that summarizes your emails?
I do actually. Yeah, I use Zapier. So I file my newsletters when they come into Gmail in a label, certain newsletters, and then I have Zapier look at that on a real time basis. It takes the text of the content from the newsletter out of Gmail, sends it to ChatGPT, writes a summary based on a fancy prompt I have, and then it slacks me the answer to here's the summary of the newsletter. And by the way, should I say subscribed or unsubscribed because there's no value to this? So yes, I have that exact thing running, Zapier.
Okay. And, just the creepy way that social media could be. We were just talking about what we're talking about with newsletters is brand. Dale Harrison asking how many brands we're exposed to for a day. Steve Patty talking about if your brand is primarily trying to build itself with advertising, you're going to get whooped by people who have more money than you. And then Marc was talking about the changes in search, and Garrett Sussman's talking about the changes in search. And AI has killed feature-based differentiation. Every product in any category will look the same within weeks. That's true. If we do everything on AI, nothing is differentiated anymore. So that's what's going on my feed.
Who's nice. Up? So I don't know if at the bottom you see the share button.
I can go next. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I might not be able to go next because my screen sharing doesn't want to be screen shared. So
I've got, well, you're figuring that out. I can share. All right. I've got Bob Turnus, a veteran sales professional, talking about the subtle power of uncomfortable silences. Awesome. Love that. Wait at least 4 seconds. Here we go. This is what we were talking about. Let's start with the outcome. Let's not just focus on the output. That's from an event planner. We have Brooke saying, help, which tool is best for an amateur AI-generated images? Midjourney, and then some. So it sounds like the discussion's just getting started there. And 100 degrees in Texas, some plants are thriving and some plants are not thriving. So how do you create the conditions to excel? Love that. I guess my feed's full of a lot of ads here too. So Ashley, I don't have time to distill that. Rethinking the agile for the AI era. Yeah, a lot of agilists in my network who are trying to figure out that intersection. So that is what is going on with my feed.
I love it. I love seeing other people's feeds. Like we really do live in this weird algorithmically driven world, which means we all live in our own filter bubbles. So I don't know. I like seeing other people's feeds. I feel like I'm getting pushed to look at certain things, and I have to force myself to be like, a break out of that. So that's great. Thank you guys for sharing. That was awesome. I love it.
All right. I think that does it for this week. We are an hour in, slightly over. Tune in next week where Marc's going to debut the MarTech Live jingle.
Oh,
Ooh.
I gotta write that down. Take my bongos.
That he's going to create. He's got 7 days now to do it.
Oh my God. No
We'll
pressure.
see what he comes up with.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Thank you guys for joining. This was really fun.
And Melissa,
Yes,
thanks.
Jake.
Appreciate you coming on.
Awesome.
Great
Have a great
conversation.
weekend.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.